Hello, science enthusiasts. I'm Jason Zakowski.
And I'm Chris Zakowski.
We're the pet parents of Bunsen, Beaker, Bernoulli, and Ginger,
the science animals on social media.
If you love science
and you love pets,
you've come to the right spot. So put on your safety glasses
and hold on to your tail.
This is the Science Podcast. Just a heads up, I screwed up this episode with my mic settings, so my audio is not the best. Chris sounds great. Hello, welcome back to the Science Podcast. We hope you're happy and healthy out there. This is episode 30 of season 7. Chris, another week on strike.
It has been another week on strike. You're absolutely correct.
Yep. Very surreal feeling. We went to a rally today. That was exciting.
Yeah, we did. It was a great turnout, and they had a barbecue after. So we got to talk to some of our colleagues that we don't necessarily see all of the time. And that was unfortunate for the reason why we were there, but it was great to connect with our colleagues for sure.
Yeah, good turnout, and there's a lot of public support. That's great. Not to get too down, but it is sucky that we're on strike, but it's part of our life. It is giving us a lot more time with the dogs. I don't know if they're going to be ready for when we go back.
I was talking to other dog parents about that. They're like, our dogs are going to go through withdrawal.
Yeah.
And I think they are. But we've been filling their day with fun walks in different areas of the city. That's been really enjoyable for me.
Bernoulli and Beaker have a busy life when we're in school anyways, because we do take them to doggy daycare and they're go all day. They're busy when we're in school or not. Maybe they're just like, there's more us time with them, which has been nice. That's been good.
That's my favorite part of the day is just downtime with the dogs. And every morning I get to snuggle with Beaker and she just lays with me and I get to pet her and she just gives me this warm energy. I just love it. It reminds me when I taught from home, and I got to hang out with the dogs all day. It was just Beaker and Bunsen then, but Beaker every day, her and I. I could mark from the couch and I would sit with her and we would snuggle. So I'm going to go through withdrawal when I'm back at work.
She's a sweetie. She's just a sweet dog. All right, what's on the show this week? In science news, Chris, you found a really fun article about birds during the Great American Eclipse and how their singing changed.
We're going to talk about it more, but it's just a way to think about and research how animals respond to their environment. And it's really cool in that aspect.
And in pet science, maybe on the heels of our guest we had last week, who talked about there's some concerns when you have small children in the house with dogs. And this study's kind of all about that, about how children aren't really ready to be around dogs unsupervised because they just don't know how dogs are supposed to act. They don't have enough life experience.
Do you remember Melissa? I'll be nice to those puppies, I promise.
Yeah.
I'll be nice to those puppies.
Yeah. Little kids don't know. You have to teach them how to be to a dog with proper supervision. Yeah. But let's get on with the show because there's no time like
science time.
This week in science news, it's all about birds singing during the solar eclipse. Now, you and I took time off school. We went and saw the eclipse in Texas.
We sure did. And we flew out on the Saturday. You're like, let's fly out on the Saturday. And I said, are you sure? And you said, that would be a great day to fly out. Are you sure, Jason? April 6th, that's a great day to fly. And you said, yep, I don't want to fly any other day. And that was my birthday. So I got to fly out to Texas on my birthday. But the solar eclipse was on the 8th.
Yeah, that's right. Amazing. It was an amazing experience. I'm very glad. I've never seen one in my entire life. They come around in your location on Earth, maybe once in your entire life, sometimes never. And I was like, it's time for me to see one and see what they're all about. And it was pretty spectacular.
Mm-hmm. I had a really great time too. It was a lot of fun going down there. We got to see a really fun show and we got to see the spectacular I want to say light show, but it wasn't. It was a lack of light show with the totality of the eclipse. And I wanted to wear certain colors of clothing because I heard that if you wear red, that it's muted, or green. And so we definitely picked up some lawn chairs and I wore a red shirt just to test that. But birds actually depend on light cues as well but birds actually depend on light cues to time daily and seasonal behaviors, like their singing, like their feeding, and roosting. And like you said, totality occurs at a given site only once every 300 to 400 years. Most wild birds actually have never experienced such an abrupt day to night to back to day transition. Yeah. So the researchers, they used community science. So, avid bird watchers, and they used autonomous sound recorders and also something called BirdNET, which was a machine learning that quantified bird responses all the way from Mexico to Canada.
So the folks that published this in Science wanted to know what happened with birds during the eclipse. As you said, they used community science, which is they used a app they built called Solar Bird. It's an app for your phone. You can use it with no bird watching experience. And they logged over 11,000 observations from 1,174 users in the path of totality. So where the moon went right in front of the sun. You observe the bird for 30 seconds, and then you check a little behavior boxes, which include singing and flying and eating. And then the app automatically calculated which eclipse phase you were in using GPS and timestamp. So that was cool. They were able to commandeer a whole swath of people in the path of totality that started in Mexico and ended up in Canada. You mentioned those autonomous recording units. Those were in southern Indiana. So they set them up only in one place, and they tracked bird sounds there during the eclipse. And then that AI system, BirdNET, identified from those recordings a whole schwack of vocalizations from 52 different species, and then compared them with what birds do on a normal daily basis without the weird eclipse. So there's a whole lot of data they had to parse out. Do you want to talk key results?
Yeah. So with that data, they found some community science findings. So the vocalizations rose sharply during totality, which they found more singing and more birds calling. But flying and other behaviors that are visible, they dropped significantly, probably because birds settled to roost or there was low visibility during the totality. And then after totality, both vocalizations and flight activity increased again, which mirrored pseudo-dawn burst. And areas actually outside the path of totality, the ones that received partial eclipses, showed no significant changes.
And just from us experiencing it, like, it got dark. I was shocked how dark it got. Like, I knew it was going to get dark when totality happened, but I was actually stunned how dark it got.
But cold too. So we were sitting next to... Yeah. We were sitting next to some people and they were all set up. They had this humongous thermometer and they had, like, their camera was set up. I was, like, really impressed that these community scientists set up all of this apparatus, and it dropped. Was it 10 degrees?
Well, Fahrenheit? It was in Fahrenheit. Yeah, Fahrenheit.
So yeah, we're not quite sure.
It got colder, and because
it felt colder, and my shirt was doing the changing color. It was pretty cool. It became more muted.
Yeah, so I can imagine if you were a bird and it got instantaneously that dark and cold, you're like, it's time to go. It's nighttime. It just would make sense, I guess. Now, they did have the AI field recorder findings that they had to go through. Of the 52 species detected, 29 showed significant behavior changes. 11 species increased their vocalization before totality, and 12 species changed during totality. Half increased, half decreased. 19 species behavior altered after, mostly increased singing. So the singing kind of changed as totality happened and after totality. And then Specifically, the American robin vocalization was 5 times higher during the eclipse and 6 times higher after. And remember, they're using the AI field recorders to compare with control, which would have been the day before, no eclipse. And the barred owl had 4 times more calls after totality. So there was about a 50% increase in observed species showing some kind of disruption due to the light change. So that's cool. That's really good data.
So do we just want to go to the ecological and biological implications?
Yeah, let's skip down there. Yep.
So what they found were several ecological and biological implications through this study. The return of light is a particularly strong biological cue. Even that 4-minute quote unquote night of totality can reset a bird's behavior. And that confirms that circadian rhythms in many species are tightly driven to light. Roughly half of the species were unaffected, which suggests maybe species-specific differences in light sensitivity. And it provides a rare, large-scale natural test of light mechanisms, unlike what they can do in the lab with light and dark experiments.
The whole sky turned dark versus a couple birds you have in your lab.
Exactly. And it offers insight into the ecological impacts of artificial light at night. I actually just saw an advertisement for the Dark Skies conference in Jasper, and it just made me reflect on all the things that they do to keep that a dark sky preserve. And I know you bug me about leaving the outside light on because you're like, it bugs the moths. It's not good for them.
Screws up the insects. Yeah.
Yeah. That whole idea of light impacting birds is prevalent. And that could cause similar disruptions on a global scale. Birds can crash into buildings based on light cues. They could get off of migration patterns based on light cues. So it's a strong ecological implication of light.
And I guess the flip side of that is half of the birds appear to be not affected by it, right? Like the half of the birds, the sun goes away and they're like, oh, whatever, just keep on doing what they're doing. Yeah, it'd be interesting. I was thinking about this when we left because we didn't have Bernoulli yet, right? This was last year, before a month or two before we got Bernoulli as a little goober. It would be so cool to have the dogs outside and then just have a camera on them to see what they would do. Like, what would have Bunsen and Beak, would they have been unaffected by it? Or would they have changed their behavior? You know?
I don't know, but there's going to be a solar eclipse in our neck of the woods coming up shortly.
When is that?
Wasn't it like 2028?
Oh, man, we're going to be so old.
Oh, wow. No, wasn't it 2044?
Yeah, it's 2044, Chris. We're going to be old.
No, I thought it was a lot sooner for us. I'll have to look it up again.
No, the next total eclipse visible from Alberta will be August 22nd. So a couple days after my birthday on 2044. There will be a partial eclipse on 2026 on August 12th. Europe will get totality.
So watch the skies and the behavior of your pets.
All right, that's science news for this week. This week in pet science, we're going to look at a study published in Anthrozoos. It's concluded kids get animal behavior wrong, and it can sometimes have bad outcomes. Now, we've had lots of little kids around our dogs, but what do we do when we have small children around dogs? We don't just let them go.
No, we supervise.
Yeah, we watch.
And Melissa has made a comment about how we're more heightened and more protective just to make sure that the dogs and the kids interact in a positive way. And she had a little bit of a negative thing because it's not Rafi's fault that he's 4 or 5 or 6 and he is the way he is. Excitable, wants to run around with the dog, wants to be chased by the dog. But like for us, we want to have well-adjusted dogs. And like you said, it's hard to the kids don't necessarily understand the cause and effect of their actions, where they think the dog is playing appropriately when it's not. And we definitely want our dogs to be on their best behavior and basically bomb proof in whatever situation that they find themselves in.
Yeah. I would never think that the dogs would bite a kid or a small child, but you never know. It just takes a toddler to fall over on a dog and hurt them the wrong way and they snip back. Like you'd hope that would never happen, but that's always in the back of my head because dogs are animals, right? You can't get in their head and know 100% of the time what they're thinking.
Exactly.
Before we get to some of the risk outlined in the study, human-dog interactions are extremely positive for kids. They help teach kids empathy. They help reduce stress. All of these, they even improve their academic performance. I shared actually today, Chris, on our story on Instagram, kindergarten class got classroom puppies. So I know the little kids were, a couple of kids started crying. They were so overcome with emotion seeing the puppies, and they were reading books to the little puppies, right? They all got to take a turn in with the puppies and read books, which is really sweet. And dogs are a very common pet. Like in Canada, they're, 33% of homes have a dog, 40% in the United States, 31% in the United Kingdoms, and very high in parts of Latin America. So you have lots and lots of dogs everywhere. Now, the flip side of that is, despite all this good news, dog bites are a big problem globally. You have high costs in some places because there's some places where if you get bit and there's some damage, you may not have insurance. And small children are disproportionately affected. And the injuries they sustain are usually bad. So that's
often with their face or head injuries, but then they have a PTSD risk after a severe bite. Yeah. So talking with the benefits of the human-dog interaction, like you're saying, the dog bites are a growing public concern. And UK hospitals have noticed triple the bites. From 1997 to 1998, there were 2,915 bites, up to 9,366 in 2022 to 2023. And children consistently have the highest incident rates.
If America, the United States, it's hard to get an exact measure because not all bites are reported, but there's something like an estimated 4.5 million bites a year, which is wild.
So one thing that might coincide is during the pandemic. So dog ownership during the pandemic increased. From the United Kingdom, it went from 23% to 33% to about 34% from 2020 to 2022. And they noticed concurrent bite increases. Mm-hmm. So why and where are children bitten, Jay?
Well, most kids are bitten from the family's own dog, just in day-to-day interactions. 86% of the bites are triggered by child-initiated interactions, and usually they occur without parental supervision. And one idea is that little kids, they bend toward the dog with their own face, and that's why they get bit in the face. Like, little kids are really curious. The next time you're with a toddler, watch how they look at things. They bend forward and squat to look at them. Like they get right up in there. Whereas you think of an adult, like, would you stick your face into the face of a dog? Probably not.
Definitely not a dog I don't trust.
Yeah, exactly. Not a dog you don't know. But so I guess this is a family dog. But more often than not, as adults, we say hello to the dog, but we pet them. Of course, I think I've kissed our dogs probably 50 times today. So I am bending my face toward the dog, but it's from a different angle, right? I'm not at their level squatting down.
No, that's true. Because I had Bernoulli on one side of my leg and Bunsen on the other, and I was rubbing them, and I went down and I kissed their heads. I was up in their face, but it wasn't me going towards them at their eye level. So that makes it a little bit different, and we're not as unpredictable.
Yeah, kids,
right? Because I'm talking to the dog. Yeah, the kids are unpredictable, and I don't do quick and sudden movements.
So what this study was looking at was examining how kids from 4 to 7 and versus adults interpret dog and human facial expressions. So they were trying to figure out, kids just get wrong their dog's facial behavior, right? Like, we've been around angry dogs before, and you're like, that dog is angry. But perhaps a small child wouldn't clue in on that. So that's what they used. They used like angry dog faces, angry human faces, happy dog faces, happy human faces, and neutral dog human faces using photos. You were going to say, Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, but there is a core knowledge gap that they found. So children, not only children, actually many adults poorly read dogs' body and facial signals, and actually having ownership or experience with dogs does not reliably predict their accuracy of being able to read the body or facial signals. So prior study shows frequent misreading of aggressive signals as happy and a limited understanding of neutral expressions in dogs. And that's kids and adults alike.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't have any knowledge of that. What does a neutral dog face look like? I don't know. I'd have to probably, yeah, I guess so. Beaker face. They had 89 kids of between that age of 4 to 7 and 30 adults. They gave them 24 black and white photos with the different emotions per series of different types of dogs and different people in it. And they randomized it. Showed the test subjects the pictures and had them interpret the emotion, happy, angry, or neutral. And I guess this is the crux of it. What did the study find, Chris?
They found that the angry dog faces, which is the most critical, there was major child misinterpretation in proving with age, but persisting at 7 years. The 4-year-olds, 67% misinterpreted angry dog faces. 5-year-olds was 70%. 6-year-olds was 58%. Whereas the 7-year-olds was the 46%, and the adults had one error, which was 0.8%.
Whoa. Okay. Not even close.
Exactly. Not even close. 4-year-olds, definitely. 5-year-olds, they're not interpreting an angry dog face. They just don't know. So the most common error in the children, they thought the angry dogs were happy as opposed to being angry dogs. 4-year-olds were 78% incorrect. They thought the angry dog was happy. And 5-year-olds was higher at 86%. And then 6-year-olds was lower at 66%. And then 7-year-olds, it dropped off to the 43. So it seems like the 5-year-olds is a sweet spot for very much misinterpretation.
Wow. I knew it was going to be something like this until we looked at the study. And even though I looked at it, obviously, before we started talking, it's just such a shocking percentage. Like, kids, this is the big thing, is the kids don't know. They just don't have the life experience to get when a dog is upset.
Right.
And this is what the data says, and that's scary.
And I think that's why we were like hypersensitive.
Yeah.
Like with Rafi running around the house, jumping on the couch. Lee was chasing him, and they were having a great time. And it looked like they were having a great time, but I don't think Bernoulli ever had an angry face. Let's be honest. But it could have gone badly. So that's why
he could have bit Rafi like as a puppy, but it would have hurt him, right?
Mm-hmm. And I guess that's different. I guess that is different because puppies are.
Bernoulli was like 8 months. He was almost full grown, but still a puppy. So there's,
No, there's that humping video where Rafi's running outside.
Okay, when he was a little puppy, that's different than when he was running, because he's still He was doing that when he was, I don't know, 70, 80 pounds.
And Bunsen. Raffi can rile up Bunsen running around the kitchen. Yeah.
Bunsen has a really cool relationship with Raffi, though.
That's for
sure. They have a neat relationship. Anyways, not to the point.
No. So we'll just keep talking about what the study found. Angry human faces. So there were far fewer errors in children. They knew when a parent was angry, and they interpret human anger better than canine anger for sure. And happy faces, children and adults were best at determining a happy human face, and happy dogs were harder. The youngest children missed interpreting a happy dog face. And then the neutral faces were hardest overall. So youngest children often performed poorly on both species, neutral expressions, both human and dog. Okay. Yeah. Oh. And adults still made some neutral face errors because a neutral face is often ambiguous.
Yeah. So not to belabor the conclusion, but it's pretty self-explanatory. The practical conclusion is you need to watch your kids when they're around dogs. There is a huge safety gap. Kids just cannot read a dog. Little kids cannot read a dog when they're angry versus happy. And because of that, just watch your kids when they're around dogs, and even be like us, hovering to make sure there's no misinterpretation or there's no behavior by the dog on the little kid.
Exactly. Yeah. And being preventative, making that prevention a priority. So teaching the facial and body signals, especially a conflict escalation. So if your dog has a wrinkled muzzle, or they have their forward ears, or they have a hard stare, their teeth are showing, have the child clue into those are your dog is uncomfortable and it could escalate. But then also sometimes dogs will display behaviors where they're trying to diffuse it. So turning away and then lip licking or yawning. Yeah. So those are signals that dogs are like, whoa, this is too much here. And then the kids, sometimes they just don't interpret those. And so then they keep going. And then that's past the point of danger, right? Because the dog is trying to show, I'm trying to diffuse the situation, but I can't because the child just is relentless.
Yeah. All this being said, don't be discouraged in not getting a dog if you've got little kids at home. Callan came home to us as a puppy when Adam was a little guy, and they had just the sweetest relationship. That was really cool for Adam and Duncan. Like, how old was Duncan when we got Callan? 12? 11? He was young. Yeah. So, Callan has been gone for a while now, but that was very cool for them to grow up with a dog. It was wonderful. All right, that's Pet Science for this week.
That's it for this week's show. Thanks for coming back week after week to listen to the Science Podcast. And a shout out to all the top dogs. That's the top tier of our Patreon community, the Paw Pack. You can sign up in our show notes. All right, Chris, let's hear those names that are part of the top dogs.
Amelia Fettig, Ree Oda, Carol Hano, Jennifer Challen, Linnea Janet, Karen Cronister, Vicky Otero, Christy Walker, Sarah Bram, Wendy, Diane, Mason and Luke, Helen Chin, Elizabeth Bourgeois, Marianne McNally, Catherine Jordan, Shelley Smith, Laura Stephenson, Tracy Linebaugh, Anne Uchida, Heather Burback, Kelly, Tracy Halberg, Ben Rather, Debbie Anderson, Sandy Breimer, Mary Rader, Bianca Hyde, Andrew Lynn, Brenda Clark, Brianne Hawes, Peggy McKeel, Holly Burge, Kathy Zerker, Susan Wagner, and Liz Button.
For science, empathy, and cuteness.